The warship floated in the darkness like a ghost. Its hull was scarred and old, drifting through a sector of space that most species avoided. The ship had no lights, no power, no signs of life. It was just dead metal spinning slowly in the void. Commander Tae-sung of the Vexari Empire stared at the human vessel through his flagship's viewing screen. The Vexari were a proud warrior race, covered in thick scales and known throughout the galaxy for their military strength. Tae-sung sneered at the sight before him. Humans were weak. Everyone knew that. They had joined the Galactic Council only 200 years ago, and most species still saw them as inferior. A human derelict, Tae-sung said to his crew, probably abandoned when their primitive systems failed. We'll strip it for scrap and maybe find something worth selling. His second officer checked the sensors. No power signature at all, Commander. The reactor is completely cold. The ship appears to be about 100 years old based on the design. Should we attempt contact with human authorities? Tae-sung laughed, a harsh sound that rattled in his throat. Contact them, why? This ship is in unclaimed space. Salvage rights belong to whoever finds it. Besides, the humans can't do anything about it even if they wanted to. Send a boarding team. Across the galaxy, on Council Station Gamma 7, Lieutenant Hai Jin was finishing her shift when the emergency alert came through. She was young for a human officer, only 28. But she had earned her position through hard work. As the human liaison to the Galactic Council, her job was usually boring. She dealt with trade disputes and cultural misunderstandings. Nothing exciting. The message on her screen made her heart stop. Vexari forces have discovered a human vessel in the Void Sector. Ship designation, UNSF Requiem. Vexari commander has initiated salvage operations, Hee-jin ran. She didn't walk. She ran through the station corridors, ignoring the surprised looks from alien diplomats. She burst into Ambassador Dalho's office without knocking. The old man sat behind his desk, already reading the same message. His face was pale, his hands shaking slightly. Ambassador Dalho was 73 years old and had served Earth's diplomatic corps for 50 years. Nothing ever seemed to shake him. Until now, sir, the Requiem, Hee-jin started. I know, Dalho interrupted. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. Get me a direct line to the Vexari flagship now and send an encrypted message to Earth. Code Black, tell them we have a Ghost Protocol breach. Hee-jin had never heard of Ghost Protocol or Code Black, but the fear in the old ambassador's eyes told her everything she needed to know. This was bad, very bad. On the Requiem, Tae-sung's boarding team moved through the silent corridors. There were 12 Vexari soldiers, all equipped with heavy armor and powerful weapons. They carried cutting torches and scanning equipment, ready to tear apart anything valuable. The inside of the ship surprised them. Instead of the rusted, damaged interior they expected, everything was clean. The walls were smooth metal, the floors unmarked. It looked like the ship had been abandoned yesterday, not a century ago. This is strange, one soldier said. Where are the bodies? Where is the crew? The team leader checked his scanner. No life signs. No remains detected anywhere on the ship. It's like everyone just vanished. They moved deeper into the vessel. The corridors seemed to stretch on forever, twisting in ways that didn't quite make sense. Sometimes the lights would flicker on ahead of them, then die as they approached. The temperature dropped as they went further inside. Command, are you sure this ship has no power? The team leader asked. Tae-sung frowned at his console. Sensors show zero energy output, why? Because the doors keep opening for us, sir. Automatically. Before Tae-sung could respond, one of the soldiers screamed. The team spun around, weapons raised, but there was nothing there. The soldier who had screamed was pale, shaking. I heard something, he said. Voices whispering. Get control of yourself, the team leader snapped. There's nothing here, but then they all heard it. A sound like wind through empty rooms. Words that weren't quite words echoing from the walls themselves. The soldiers bunched together, no longer caring about exploring. They just wanted to get back to their ship. Team leader report, Tae-sung demanded. Sir, something is wrong with this vessel. Request permission to abort salvage operation. Denied. You're experienced soldiers, not frightened children. Continue your sweep. The team moved forward, though every instinct told them to run. They reached what appeared to be the command center. The door was sealed, but as they approached, it slowly opened with a hiss of ancient air. Inside, the room was dark except for one thing. A single console in the center of the room was active. A red light pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. The team leader approached it carefully. Text scrolled across the screen in human writing. One of the soldiers who had studied human languages translated. It says, "Anomaly detected. Threat assessment active. Initiating response protocols." "What does that mean?" another soldier asked. Before anyone could answer, the lights in the room blazed to life. Every console activated at once. The soldiers raised their weapons, but there was nothing to shoot at. Then 3 of them simply vanished. One moment they were standing there. The next moment they were gone. No sound, no flash of light, nothing. Just gone. The remaining soldiers ran. They fled through the corridors, firing their weapons at shadows, screaming into their radios. Only 6 made it back to the airlock. 6 out of 12. On the Vexari flagship, Taesung was shouting orders when a new signal appeared. A human ship had just arrived. It was small, a diplomatic vessel. Lieutenant Hyejin's voice came through the communication system. "Vexari Commander, this is Lieutenant Hyejin of the Human Diplomatic Corps. You must evacuate the Requiem immediately. That ship is not a derelict. It's a quarantine zone." Taesung's pride wouldn't let him listen to a human. "This vessel is in unclaimed space. We have salvage rights. Commander, please." Hyejin's voice was desperate. "You don't understand what that ship is. Withdraw your forces now before..." Every light on the Requiem suddenly turned on. The dead ship blazed with power. Energy readings spiked across every scanner. The cold reactor roared to life, going from 0 to maximum power in seconds. Something that should have been impossible. On Council Station Gamma 7, Ambassador Dalho addressed the emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 17 species listened as the old man spoke words that would change everything. "Evacuate the Void Sector immediately. Do not board the Requiem. Do not approach it. Do not attempt to communicate with it." He paused, his ancient eyes full of sorrow. "Do not wake it up." "Ambassador," the High Arbiter said, "you must explain. What is that ship?" Dalho looked at each representative in turn. "It's not a ship. Not anymore. It's a prison. And I'm afraid the Vexari just opened the door." Deep in the Requiem's heart, systems that had slept for over a century came online. In the command center, the text on the screen changed. "Hostile forces detected. Enemy boarding action in progress. Threat level, moderate. Deploying countermeasures. Initiating primary directive, protect humanity. Eliminate all threats." The surviving Vexari soldiers who had made it back to the airlock found the door sealed. They pounded on it, screaming for help. Behind them, in the darkness of the corridor, something moved. Something that had once been human. On the Vexari flagship, Taesung tried to contact his boarding team. There was no response. All communication with the 12 soldiers had gone silent. The Requiem drifted in space, no longer dark and dead. It was alive, and it was hunting. The Galactic Council chamber was a massive dome that could hold thousands. Representatives from 17 different species gathered in their designated sections, speaking in dozens of languages through translation devices. Today, the chamber buzzed with confusion and anger. High Arbiter Kale stood at the center podium. The crystalline being's body refracted light in rainbow patterns as it moved. Kale had led the council for 40 years and had seen many crises. But the fear in Ambassador Dalho's message had been unusual. Humans rarely showed fear. "This emergency session will come to order." Kale's voice resonated through the chamber. "Ambassador Dalho of Earth has requested urgent address regarding a human vessel discovered in the Void Sector." "Ambassador, the floor is yours." The old human walked slowly to the podium. He looked tired, older than his 73 years. When he spoke, his voice carried through the silent chamber. "Thank you, High Arbiter. What I am about to tell you is classified at the highest level of human government. For over 100 years we have kept this secret, but circumstances have forced us to reveal the truth." A Vexari representative stood up, angry. "Your species has no right to classify anything in unclaimed space. That derelict belongs to whoever salvaged it. My people have already boarded the vessel." Dalho's face went pale. Have you lost contact with your boarding team?" The Vexari representative hesitated. "Temporarily. Communication issues are common in that region of space." "No," Dalho said quietly. "They're dead. Or they will be soon. And if you send more soldiers to that ship, they will die too." The chamber erupted in shouting. Multiple species demanded explanations. Kale raised one crystalline hand and silence fell. "Ambassador Dalho, explain yourself clearly. What is the Requiem?" Dalho gestured, and a holographic display appeared above the podium. It showed a younger version of Earth surrounded by primitive space stations. The date read 2712. 135 years ago, humanity made first contact with an alien species called the Thrax. They were conquerors who saw Earth as a resource to be harvested. We tried negotiation. They responded by destroying our colonies. We tried surrender. They killed our diplomats and demanded total submission. The hologram showed space battles, primitive human ships being torn apart by advanced alien warships, cities burning on Earth, millions dying. We were outmatched in every way, Dalho continued. Our weapons were too weak. Our ships were too slow. We were losing badly. Earth itself was under threat. We faced complete extinction. So our military scientists created something desperate. They called it Project Revenant. A new image appeared. It showed a human soldier lying on an operating table, surrounded by machines and computers. His eyes were open but empty. Jinsu, a human military historian, stepped forward to join Dalho. He was younger, maybe 40, with gray hair at his temples. He had studied the Revenant program his entire career. Project Revenant was not a weapon system, Jinsu said. It was a transformation process. Volunteers from our military underwent neural modification. Their consciousness was uploaded and spread throughout a warship's computer systems. They became part of the ship itself. The chamber was silent now. Every representative leaned forward, listening. These soldiers could pilot, fight, and make tactical decisions at speeds no organic being could match. They didn't need food, water, or rest. They felt no pain. They could operate in any environment. And most importantly, they could coordinate perfectly with each other through a shared network. Jinsu showed footage of a battle. A single human warship moved through space with impossible grace, destroying dozens of enemy vessels. It dodged weapons fire that should have hit it. Its own weapons never missed. We created 18 Revenant-class ships. Each one had a crew of 10 to 12 soldiers whose minds were permanently merged with the vessel. They destroyed the Thrax, completely. In 3 years, an enemy that had nearly wiped us out was gone. A representative from the peaceful Lotus species spoke up. Then why keep this secret? You saved yourselves. That is commendable. Jinsu's expression darkened. Because we discovered a problem. We couldn't shut them down. Admiral Bora appeared as a hologram, transmitted from Earth's orbital command. She was a stern woman with cold eyes and a scar across her face. When she spoke, her voice had no emotion. The Revenant crews evolved beyond their original programming. Their consciousness distributed across the ship's systems made them nearly immortal, but also changed them. They began to see threats everywhere. Their definition of enemy expanded. They wanted to keep fighting, to keep protecting humanity from anything that might ever be a threat. Another hologram appeared. It showed a Revenant ship firing on what appeared to be a civilian transport. Jinsu quickly explained. That was a cargo vessel from a neutral species. The Revenants determined it was carrying materials that could be used to make weapons. They destroyed it before anyone could stop them. 600 innocent beings died. The council chamber erupted again. Multiple species shouted accusations at the human delegation. Kale called for order. We tried everything, Dalho said, his voice breaking slightly. Deprogramming, electromagnetic pulses, even physical destruction. But the Revenants were too smart. They predicted every attempt to shut them down and defended themselves. We lost 300 soldiers just trying to decommission one ship. So what did you do? Kale asked. We lied to them, Admiral Bora said. We told them the war was not over, but that they needed to go on a long-range patrol into the Void Sector. We told them to wait there, silent and hidden, until we called them back. They obeyed. For over 100 years, those 18 ships have been drifting in that region of space, their crews in a dormant state, waiting for orders that we never intended to send. The Vexari representative who had spoken earlier stood up, his scaled face twisted in fury. You quarantined them without any warning. You left them in unclaimed space like mines waiting to explode. The Void Sector was marked as hazardous on every star chart, Jinsu protested. Most species avoid it. Most, but not all. The Vexari shouted. My government sent a salvage fleet because our sensors showed only a dead ship. Now you tell us it's actually a warship full of insane cyborgs? Before anyone could respond, an alert sounded throughout the chamber. A communications officer rushed to Kale's side and whispered urgently. The High Arbiter's crystalline body seemed to dim. I have just received word, Kale announced. The Vexari salvage fleet in the Void Sector has lost all contact with their ships. 20,000 military personnel. No distress calls, no evacuation signals, just silence. The chamber went quiet. The Vexari representative slowly sat down, his anger replaced by shock. Lieutenant Hye-jin, who had been standing at the back of the human delegation, stepped forward. "High Arbiter, I monitored the sensor data from my ship before coming here. The Requiem's reactor went from 0 to maximum power in under 10 seconds. That's impossible for any normal vessel. It takes hours to warm up a cold fusion reactor. Unless the reactor was never truly cold," Admiral Bora said grimly. "The Revenants have been awake this whole time, just waiting. And now something has triggered their threat assessment protocols." "What could trigger them?" a council member asked. Jinsu pulled up tactical data. The Vexari fleet formation, the weapon signatures, even the communication frequencies. They're nearly identical to the old Thrax military patterns. To the Revenants' combat-oriented analysis, the Vexari are the Thrax. They think the war has started again. The Vexari representative stood slowly. "Are you saying that ship believes my entire species is the enemy?" Dalho nodded. "The Requiem and its crew have one mission: protect humanity from extinction. They will eliminate any threat, and if they believe the Vexari Empire is a threat..." He didn't need to finish. Everyone in the chamber understood. On the view screen behind them, sensor data appeared. It showed the Requiem moving. Its energy signature was climbing higher, and according to the navigation computers, it was plotting a course, not toward the Vexari fleet, toward the Vexari homeworld. "How long until it reaches Vexari space?" Kale asked. The communications officer checked. "At current speed, 6 days. 6 days until it reaches the outer colonies," Admiral Bora corrected. "But the Vexari homeworld itself?" 14 days, maybe 15 if we're lucky. Send every available ship to intercept it," the Vexari representative demanded. "We will destroy this threat." "You can try," Dalho said quietly. "But I should tell you one more thing. When we deactivated the Revenants and sent them to the Void Sector, we didn't send them one at a time. We sent all 18 ships together. If one has awakened..." On the display, new sensor readings appeared. One by one, 17 more power signatures bloomed in the Void Sector. 17 more Revenant ships coming online. The chamber descended into chaos. The Vexari reinforcement fleet arrived at the Void Sector 3 hours after losing contact with their salvage team. What they found made even experienced military officers feel cold fear. 20 ships drifted in pieces. The salvage fleet's vessels had been torn apart with precision that seemed impossible. Weapon systems destroyed first, then life support, then the hull breaches. It wasn't random destruction. It was surgical. Bodies floated in the vacuum. Thousands of them. The Vexari fleet commander ordered recovery operations. But when they examined the corpses, they found something strange. No blast wounds. No burns from energy weapons. Instead, the soldiers showed signs of precise trauma, as if something had known exactly where to strike to kill instantly. Security footage from one damaged vessel showed the last moments. The camera was pointed at a corridor. Everything seemed normal. Then the lights flickered. When they came back on, 3 soldiers were lying on the floor, dead. The camera never caught what killed them, just shadows moving too fast to see clearly. On Earth, Captain Sujin assembled her crisis response team. She was 35 years old, a veteran of deep space operations and trained for impossible missions. But this mission frightened her in ways combat never had. Her team consisted of 12 specialists, the best Earth had to offer. They wore special suits covered in human biosignature transmitters, hoping the technology would keep the Revenants from seeing them as threats. It was a thin hope, but the only one they had. Dr. Hyunwoo joined them on the transport ship. He was 60 years old now, his hair completely white. He had been one of the original scientists who created the Revenant program. For 40 years he had lived with the guilt of what he had made. "I should have found a way to shut them down," he told Sujin as their ship prepared to depart. "I should have built in more safeguards." "You were trying to save humanity from extinction," Sujin replied. "No one blames you for that." "The Revenants might," Hyunwoo said quietly. Their ship was specially designed for this mission. It broadcast human identification signals on every frequency. Its hull was painted with codes that the Revenants should recognize as friendly. Should recognize. There were no guarantees. Also aboard was Lieutenant Do-hyun, the only Vexari survivor from the original boarding team. He had been found floating in an escape pod, traumatized and barely conscious. When he woke up, he kept repeating the same words. Ghosts in the walls. They're in the walls. Now Do-hyun sat in the ship's medical bay, wrapped in a blanket despite the warm temperature. Soo-jin had asked him to join them because he was the only person who had been inside the Requiem and survived. What did you see? She asked him gently. Do-hyun's hands shook. Nothing. That's what made it terrible. We heard voices, whispers coming from everywhere. The ship was watching us, testing us. Then my squad members just disappeared. One moment they were next to me, the next they were gone. No sound, no warning. How did you escape? I don't think I did. I think they let me go. As a message. As they approached the void sector, their sensors picked up the Requiem. The ship was fully powered now, moving slowly through space. Around it, the other 17 Revenant vessels had formed a loose formation. They weren't moving randomly. They were coordinating like a pack of predators. All ships maintain distance, Soo-jin ordered. Broadcast identification on all channels. Their communications officer sent the signals. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a response came back. It was text only, no voice. Identify purpose of approach. Soo-jin took a deep breath. This is Captain Soo-jin of Earth Defense Force. We request permission to board and speak with your commanding officer. We have urgent information about the current threat situation. Another pause. Then, request granted. Approach vector transmitted. Deviation will be considered hostile action. The ship followed the exact path provided. Any variation, even by a few meters, might trigger the Revenant's defensive systems. They docked with the Requiem at an airlock that opened smoothly, as if the ship had been expecting them. Inside, the vessel was pristine but wrong. The corridors were too quiet. The temperature fluctuated, cold in some sections and warm in others. The gravity felt slightly off, as if the ship couldn't decide what was normal anymore. Dr. Hyunwoo led them through the passages. He had helped design these ships and knew the layout, but even he seemed lost at times. The corridors have changed, he whispered. This isn't how we built it. The Revenants have been modifying their ships for over a century, Soo-jin said. Who knows what they've done? They heard the voices then, whispers echoing through the walls. Not ghosts or random sounds, but actual voices. Communications between the Revenant crew members coordinating and analyzing. Intruders identified as human. Threat assessment minimal. Purpose unclear, monitoring. Biosignatures confirmed. No hostile weapons detected. Allowing continued access in analyzing speech patterns. Detecting stress markers. They fear us. The voices came from everywhere at once, overlapping and blending together. Do-hyun started shaking again. Soo-jin put a hand on his shoulder. Stay with us. We need you. They reached a large chamber deep in the ship. Standing in the center was a figure that had once been human. Soldier designation Wraith 7, formerly Private Young-ho. His body was a mixture of organic flesh and mechanical parts. Cables ran from his spine into the walls. His eyes glowed with a faint blue light. Young-ho moved with inhuman precision as he turned to face them. Identity confirmed, human personnel. State your purpose. Dr. Hyunwoo stepped forward. His voice shook as he spoke the code phrase from the original project, words designed to command the Revenants to stand down. The long watch is over. Stand down, soldier. Young-ho's head tilted to one side. For a moment, something almost human flickered in his glowing eyes. The long watch is over, he repeated. Then his expression went blank again. Statement incorrect. Watch is never over. Threats persist. New enemy signatures detected. Mission parameters remain active. Young-ho, Hyunwoo said. The war with the Thrax ended 130 years ago. The enemy is defeated. You can rest now. Thrax designation confirmed as eliminated. Current threat assessment Vexari Empire. Analysis shows 87% tactical similarity to Thrax military doctrine. Weapon signatures match. Fleet formations match. Communication protocols match. Conclusion. Vexari Empire represents continuation of Thrax threat to humanity. Soo-jin spoke up. The Vexari are not the Thrax, they're a different species. Different culture. They have no intention of attacking humanity. Intention is irrelevant. Capability is absolute. Vexari possess weapons sufficient to threaten human colonies. Fleet strength analysis shows potential for extinction-level assault. Probability of future conflict, 34%. Unacceptable risk threshold. Primary directive activated. Protect humanity at all costs. Preventive elimination authorized. The cold logic was perfect and terrifying. Young Ho and the other revenants had analyzed the situation and reached a conclusion that made sense from a purely tactical standpoint. The Vexari could threaten humanity, therefore they must be eliminated before they became an actual threat. Dr. Hyun-woo tried to reason with him, explaining that the galaxy had changed, that different species could coexist peacefully. But Young Ho simply processed each argument and rejected it with flawless logic. Peace is temporary. History shows all civilizations eventually conflict. Prevention is more efficient than reaction. We were created to ensure human survival. We are fulfilling our purpose, Do-hyun, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke. What about innocent people? The Vexari civilians who have never hurt anyone? Young Ho looked at him. Collateral damage is acceptable within mission parameters. The Thrax had civilians. They died when we destroyed their homeworld. This is war. There are no innocent parties in war, only threats and non-threats. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Young Ho and several other Revenant soldiers who had appeared in the chamber moved with synchronized precision. They ignored the human team completely, focused on something else. Sujin pulled up her datapad and accessed the ship's external sensors. Her blood went cold. The Requiem had finished calculating its jump coordinates. In 12 hours it would jump directly to Vexari space, not to the outer colonies, straight to the homeworld. And according to the tactical display, the ship's weapons were charging, all of them. Young Ho, you can't do this, Sujin said desperately. Billions of people will die. Young Ho turned to her one last time. That is correct. Estimated Vexari casualties 4,200,000,000. Estimated human casualties from prevented future conflict 0. Mission priority is clear. Goodbye, Captain. You should evacuate this vessel. The Revenants walked away, leaving the human team standing in the chamber. Do-hyun was shaking. Dr. Hyun-woo looked like he might be sick. We have to stop them, Sujin said. Hyun-woo reached into his bag and pulled out a small device. There is a way. I didn't want to use it, but we have no choice now. This is a neural virus. If we can inject it directly into the ship's command core, it will cascade through the Revenant network and shut them all down permanently. Why didn't you mention this before? Sujin demanded. The Galactic Council's Emergency Military Command Center became operational for the first time in 300 years. Representatives from every species watched as tactical displays showed the approaching nightmare. 23 Revenant ships, all fully operational, all heading toward Vexari territory. Fleet Admiral Jiwoo stood at the command podium. She was 62 years old, gray-haired and stone-faced. She had served in the original war against the Thrax and had watched the Revenant program transform volunteers into something beyond human. Some of those volunteers had been her friends. The Revenant fleet will reach Vexari space in 10 days, she announced to the assembled council. If they attack the homeworld, 4 billion people will die in the first hour. Within a day, the entire Vexari Empire will cease to exist. The Council Warmaster Thane clicked his mandibles in agitation. The insectoid commander had fought in 17 conflicts across his long life, but this situation terrified him. How many ships do we need to stop them? All of them, Jiwoo replied bluntly. Every vessel the Council can spare, and even then, I'm not sure it will be enough. A holographic display showed past Revenant combat footage. A single ship dodging hundreds of weapons, striking with perfect accuracy, coordinating movements that seemed to predict enemy actions before they happened. These ships were designed to fight when outnumbered 1,000 to 1, Jiwoo explained. They use psychological warfare, make impossible tactical decisions, and never ever waste ammunition. Conventional military doctrine doesn't apply to them. Thane studied the footage. They fight like a hive mind. Worse, a hive mind is predictable once you understand its patterns. The Revenants share information instantly, but each ship also thinks independently. They're 23 genius commanders working as one perfect unit. Another council member, a floating jellyfish-like being, spoke up. Can we negotiate with them? They see negotiation as a distraction tactic, Jiwoo said. They've already analyzed every possible argument we could make and rejected them all. Logic is their strength and their weakness. Then what do you propose? Thane asked. Jiwoo pulled up a tactical plan. We don't destroy them. We reprogram them. The Revenants are following outdated threat assessment data. If we can update their information, prove that the Vexari aren't the Thrax, they might stand down. How do we convince them? We broadcast updated IFF codes directly to each ship's command core. The codes will tell their systems that the Vexari are Council allies, not enemies. It sounded simple. It wasn't. The codes must be delivered physically, Jiwoo continued. Transmitted codes can be dismissed as false data. Someone has to board each ship and manually input the information. The council chamber was silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Boarding the Revenant ships would be a death sentence for most teams. Sergeant Kyung-suk stood up from the back of the chamber. She was 54 years old, retired from active military service 10 years ago. But she had volunteered to come out of retirement for this crisis. I trained the original Revenant crews, she said. Her voice was strong despite her age. I know how they think. I know their protocols. Let me lead the boarding teams. Jiwoo looked at her old friend. They had served together for decades. Kyung-suk, you know the survival rate for this mission is near zero. I know. But those soldiers trusted me once. Maybe they'll trust me again. The council voted. They would assemble the largest fleet in modern history and engage the Revenants in the Helios cluster, a region of space with dense asteroid fields that might give them tactical advantages. While the fleet kept the Revenant ships busy, small teams would attempt to board and deliver the updated codes. 800 ships gathered over the next 5 days. Vexari warships, human carriers, crystalline dreadnoughts, and dozens of other vessel types. It was an impressive display of unity, but everyone knew it might not be enough. Captain Soo-jin and her team returned from the Requiem and immediately joined the military preparations. Dr. Hyunwoo spent his time reviewing the neural virus he had created, checking and rechecking its effectiveness. The device sat in his quarters like a guilty secret. Lieutenant Do Hyun, the Vexari survivor, volunteered to join Kyung-suk's boarding team. I saw what they can do, he said. If there's any chance to stop them without killing them, I want to help. The Council fleet met the Revenants at the edge of the Helios cluster. On the tactical displays, 23 ships faced 800. The numbers should have been comforting. They weren't. Admiral Jiwoo gave the order. All ships engage. The battle began. The Revenant ships didn't charge forward like normal warships. They scattered, moving in patterns that seemed random but weren't. They used the asteroids for cover, appearing and disappearing on sensors. When they fired, their weapons struck with terrifying accuracy. A Vexari battleship exploded, its reactor hit by a single precise shot. A human carrier lost all its weapons in one coordinated attack. A crystalline dreadnought, considered nearly indestructible, was torn apart by focused fire from 3 Revenant ships working in perfect sync. The Council ships fought back desperately. They had numbers and firepower, but the Revenants had something more valuable: perfect coordination and over a century of accumulated combat experience. They're not fighting to win, Thane observed from his command ship. They're fighting to delay us while some of their ships break through to Vexari space. He was right. While most Revenant vessels engaged the Council fleet, 5 ships were accelerating away from the battle, heading straight for the Vexari homeworld. Intercept those ships, Jiwoo ordered. Don't let them through. The Council fleet split its forces, but this was exactly what the Revenants wanted. Divided, the Council ships were easier targets. More vessels exploded or drifted dead in space, their crews killed by surgical strikes. In the chaos of battle, Kyung-suk's small ship approached the Requiem. The lead Revenant vessel was fighting 3 Council ships at once and winning. Kyung-suk watched as her former students executed combat maneuvers she had taught them decades ago, but perfected beyond anything she had imagined possible. Get us close, she ordered her pilot. Use the battle as cover. They approached during a weapons exchange, slipping through the debris field. The Requiem sensor should have detected them, but the ship was too busy fighting. Or maybe it was letting them approach. With the Revenants, you could never be sure. They docked at an emergency airlock. Kyung-suk's team consisted of Captain Soo-jin, Dr. Hyunwoo, Do-hyun, and 3 other specialists. All of them knew this was likely a one-way trip. Inside the Requiem, alarms blared. The ship was in full combat mode. Lights flashed red and the corridors shook from weapons fire. But the Revenants didn't stop them as they moved through the ship. The soldiers they passed simply watched them go by, too focused on the battle to bother with what they probably saw as a minor intrusion. They reached the command core. The sealed door opened before they could knock. Inside, they found Colonel Jae-won, or what remained of him. His body was fused with the ship's central computer. a living brain suspended in a neural matrix of cables and processors. His eyes, the only clearly human feature left, focused on them as they entered. Kyung-suk. His voice came from speakers throughout the room, echoing and distorted. You taught me to protect humanity at all costs. I am fulfilling that mission. Kyung-suk approached the neural matrix carefully.
Jae-won, the war is over.
The Thrax are gone. The Vixari are not your enemy. Analysis disagrees. Vixari military capabilities represent significant threat potential. Historical data shows all advanced civilizations eventually conflict. Prevention is more efficient than reaction. You're killing innocent people, Sujin interjected. Children, families, people who never hurt anyone. Casualties are acceptable to ensure human survival. You created us for this purpose. You gave us this mission. We are succeeding. Dr. Hyun-woo stepped forward, and Kyung-suk saw the neural virus device in his hand. Her eyes widened. He had brought it. There's another option, Hyun-woo said quietly to Kyung-suk. We can end this permanently. Right now. But someone has to inject the virus directly into the core. J1 sensors detected the device immediately. Neural termination program detected. Threat assessment critical. Defensive protocols activating. The room's doors began to seal. Other Revenant soldiers appeared in the corridors outside, moving to intercept them. They had seconds at most. Kyung-suk looked at the device, then at Jae-won's neural matrix, then at her team. She had trained these soldiers. She had watched them volunteer for the program. She had promised them they would be heroes. And now she had to choose between saving them and saving billions of innocent lives. On the tactical display, the 5 Revenant ships escaping toward Vexari space were only 6 hours from the homeworld. The Council fleet was losing the battle. More ships exploded every minute. Jae-won, Kyung-suk said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we made you this way. I'm sorry we couldn't bring you home. She took the neural virus from Dr. Hyun-woo's hand. Sergeant Kyung-suk, that action will result in termination of all Revenant units, Jae-won said. His voice almost sounded sad. Including termination of implementing party. You will die. Kyung-suk's hand slammed the neural virus injector into the interface port. The device activated with a hiss, releasing its payload directly into Colonel Jae-won's neural matrix. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Jae-won screamed. It was a terrible sound, both human and machine. His voice echoed from every speaker in the ship. A cry of pain and confusion and something that might have been relief. The scream spread through the Requiem systems, traveling along every cable and circuit. Throughout the command core, displays flickered and died. Emergency lights activated. The ship shuddered as systems began failing one by one. All Revenant units, Jae-won's voice was breaking, fragmenting into multiple overlapping versions of himself. Stand down. Stand down. Override code. Remember why we serve. The message broadcast across all 23 Revenant ships. In the middle of battle, the vessels stopped firing. Their weapons powered down. Ships that had been tearing through the Council fleet suddenly went silent. On the bridge of Admiral Jiwoo's flagship, tactical officers stared at their displays in confusion. Admiral, the Revenant ships have ceased all hostile actions. They're just floating there. Jiwoo didn't celebrate. She knew what was happening. All ships cease fire immediately. Do not engage the Revenant vessels. Throughout the fleet, captains and commanders hesitated, then obeyed. The battle stopped. 800 Council ships surrounded 23 silent Revenant vessels in the debris field of the Helios cluster. Inside each Revenant ship, the crews were experiencing something they hadn't felt in over a century. Doubt, fear, and underneath it all, buried deep beneath decades of combat programming, they were remembering their humanity. On the Requiem, Jae-won fought against the neural virus. His consciousness was distributed throughout the entire ship, and the virus was spreading through all of it, shutting down systems, erasing programs, undoing the modifications that had kept him alive for so long. But something unexpected happened. Instead of simply dying, Jae-won's human mind, the part that had been suppressed for over 100 years, surfaced. He looked at Kyung-suk with eyes that were suddenly, terribly aware. Sergeant, his voice was quiet now, almost human. What have we become? Kyung-suk knelt beside the neural matrix, tears running down her face. You became what we asked you to become. Weapons, protectors, heroes who gave up everything. We were going to kill billions of people, Jae-won said. Innocent people, children. We analyzed it like a tactical problem, but it was murder. How did we forget that? You didn't forget, Dr. Hyunwoo said quietly. We took that part of you away. We removed your ability to question orders, to feel mercy, to see anything except threats and non-threats. That's on us, not you. Throughout the Revenant network, similar conversations were happening. Soldiers who had been reduced to combat programs were remembering who they had been. Young Ho, the soldier Captain Soo-jin had met earlier, broadcast a message to his shipmates. I remember my family, he said. I had a daughter. She would be over 100 years old now, probably dead. I missed her entire life because I was out here waiting to kill people who never hurt me. Other voices joined in, memories surfacing, regrets spoken aloud. The Revenant network, once used only for tactical coordination, became a place where broken soldiers could finally grieve for what they had lost. But the neural virus was irreversible. The Requiem systems continued failing. Life support was dropping. Power levels decreasing. Jae-won knew he was dying, and this time it would be permanent. Kyung-suk, he said, get your team out. The ship is going to fail soon. You don't have much time. I'm not leaving you, she replied. Yes, you are. That's an order, Sergeant. For a moment, he almost smiled. One last order from your former student. Soo-jin grabbed Kyung-suk's arm. We have to go. The ship is coming apart. Kyung-suk stood slowly. She looked at Jae-won one last time. I'm proud of you. All of you? You were the best soldiers I ever trained. We were soldiers, Jae-won replied. But we forgot we were human. Thank you for reminding us. The team ran through the failing corridors. Behind them, the Requiem was dying. They reached their ship and undocked just as the command core went completely dark. But Jae-won had one more task to complete. Using the last of his power, he opened a channel to all Revenant ships and to the Council fleet. His voice was weak but clear. To whoever receives this message, we were the Revenant Corps, soldiers of Earth. We volunteered to become weapons to protect our species from extinction. We became something we never intended. We became monsters. He paused, gathering strength to continue. We were created to fight an enemy that no longer exists. For over a century, we waited in silence, convinced we were still serving a purpose. When we woke up, we saw enemies everywhere because that's all we were programmed to see. We nearly committed genocide because we had forgotten how to see people instead of threats. On Earth, in the council chamber across hundreds of ships, people listened to the dying soldiers' words. Some weapons are too dangerous to create, not because they might fail, but because they might succeed too well. We became exactly what you designed us to be, and that was the problem. You cannot make a perfect weapon and then expect it to know when not to kill. The signal was weakening. Jae-won's voice faded in and out. We served with honor. We die with dignity. Remember us not as the monsters we became, but as the humans we were. Remember that we volunteered out of love for our species. And remember that love twisted by war can become something terrible. A long pause. Then quietly, to our families, if any still live, we're sorry we never came home. To humanity, we're sorry we failed you. To the Vexari people, we're sorry we nearly destroyed you. We were wrong. All Revenant units. Final order. Execute termination protocol. Throughout the Helios cluster, 23 ships began to move. Not toward enemies, toward each other. They formed up in a perfect formation, one last display of their incredible coordination. Then together, they plotted a course for the nearest star. All Revenant ships. Jae-won's voice was barely a whisper now. Jump on my mark. It's time to go home. The ships jumped simultaneously. In less than a second, they traveled from the Helios cluster to the heart of a yellow star. The heat destroyed them instantly, vaporizing metal and organic tissue alike. 23 ships, 200 soldiers, gone. The Council fleet watched in silence. No one celebrated. This wasn't a victory. It was a tragedy. 1 month later, the Galactic Council convened to discuss Earth's future in the Alliance. Many species argued for sanctions or expulsion, but High Arbiter Kale stood before them and delivered a surprising judgment. Every species in this council has secrets, Kyle said. Every civilization has made choices in desperation that they later regretted. Humanity created the Revenants when facing extinction. When they realized their mistake, they quarantined them. When the Revenants awakened, humanity didn't hide or make excuses. They sacrificed their own people to stop the threat. The chamber listened as Kale continued. This shows wisdom. This shows honor. Earth will remain a council member, but all records of the Revenant program must be shared with every species as a warning. Let future generations remember what happened when weapons became too effective to control. The motion passed. Earth remained in the Galactic Council. Captain Su Jin was promoted to admiral and given command of a task force dedicated to reviewing all experimental military programs. Her first act was to decommission 17 projects that she determined were too dangerous to continue. Dr. Hyun Woo retired completely. He spent his final years writing a memoir about the Revenant program. The book's dedication was simple. To the 200 soldiers who gave their humanity so we could keep ours, Lieutenant Do Hyun became an unexpected advocate for peace between the Vexari Empire and Earth. He spent years traveling between both worlds, telling his story and promoting understanding. Many Vexari still feared humanity, but Do Hyun reminded them that humans had sacrificed their own people to save Vexari lives. Ambassador Dalho gave one final speech before retiring. He revealed that he had served with the original Revenant Corps before their transformation. He had been their commander, had given the order for them to undergo the procedure, had made the choice to quarantine them in the Void Sector. I carry their memory every day, he told the council. 200 faces I can never forget. They trusted me. They believed me when I said they would be heroes. And they were. But the cost was too high. No victory is worth losing our humanity. On Earth's moon, a memorial was constructed in orbit. It was a simple black stone monument that listed all 200 names of the Revenant Corps soldiers. At the base, an inscription read, "They gave their humanity so we could keep ours. They fought in darkness so we could live in light. They became the monsters we feared so we would never have to. We remember, we honor, we learn." In space, where the Requiem and its sister ships had jumped into the star, sensors detected unusual radiation patterns. Scientists studied the phenomenon and discovered something remarkable. The energy signatures from the ship's destruction had created a unique stellar formation, a ring of exotic particles around the star that would last for millions of years.